Hi, Ellie.
Hi. Every time, I'll never change it. Might just need to start going by Ellie instead.
It suits you. What can I say?
Yeah.
I'm just changing all my social media profiles. I've decided on a new tagline. What do you think?
Uh,
Uh, Hang on, let me just find it again. It is gear up, go far, run ultra.
yeah, that's good. Yeah, I was waiting for more. Sorry. Yeah, the gear up, go
That's
far,
it.
run
Well, on the
ultra.
homepage,
Yeah.
we're then underneath it's the home of ultra running because that's always been there. But
Okay. I like it. Yeah, that's good.
I just thought it's concise,
Mm. Yeah,
punchy. I think it describes quite well everything we do. Gears, running, ultras.
yeah, it's got to get it all in, doesn't it? Very, very quick, small. I like it. Yeah, yeah, it's good. Very few words. Well done.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, very lucky.
How's your week been?
Good, good. I managed to squeeze in a haircut this morning.
I see. Very smart too.
Thank you very much. It was a bit touch and go as to what time I'd be back, and it reminded me of in Love Actually when Rowan Atkinson's wrapping the present for Alan Rickman and keeps it was that. So I thought I was just getting a haircut, and then it was like more of a shave, and then a hot towel. It's just like tapping my foot on the floor, like I need to go.
And you're hopping up and down in, come on, just
Yeah,
finish.
but
Very good.
made it
Very
in
good.
time.
And I see your runners were out the other night, but without you.
They were, yes. I'm stuck doing tax returns until very, very late. So,
Sorry. Yeah. Yes. I mean, I was very much aware. Yeah. You've got to, yeah, nag your clients.
I
Get
do.
all
Yeah, I
the
do.
30th of January.
Yeah, I've still got quite a few to do.
Have you?
But never mind. I'll get it done. I'm still going to the running show, and I refuse to lose that weekend.
Oh yeah. Yeah, well good for you.
Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean yeah. Yeah, that's a hard one, isn't it?
it
Um,
is. Yeah, I could really use the time, but no, I'm not sacrificing that because I've been really looking forward to it.
no, absolutely. And yeah, you shouldn't sacrifice your time. That's a very important um um what's the word I'm looking for? Where you got to have strength in yourself to look
Mm,
after yourself as well.
bit of self care.
Um,
Yeah,
um,
but otherwise, running's been going well. Been
yeah,
managed to do sort of near 45 miles a week the last couple of weeks.
very good. Very
So
good. No niggles, all the
no
killing
niggles,
good.
nothing, no Achilles, no nothing, nothing to report. Just managing to finally get some consistency in. So apart from last night,
Are you doing your strength work?
well, I've had to restructure. uh, which like because I'm trying to be in the well because I have to be in the office a little bit more. I can't really squeeze my runs into lunchtime anymore, which means I've had to sacrifice the strength session that I used to go to at lunchtime as well. So I need to find somewhere else to fit that in now.
Okay.
Uh,
Yeah.
and the only option I've got at the moment is Monday morning before work. But if I do my Sunday long run on Sunday night, I don't really want to get up at like 5:45 to go to this class. So I need to rework all of that because currently I've not been doing it.
And you can't run to work. Is it too far?
It's too close.
Oh. Well, can't you just run a bit further before arriving at work?
Well, that's what I've been doing a couple of days, like just arriving a little bit early and then just
Yeah.
running around and then back to work from there.
Can
But
you shower? Do you have a shower at work?
no.
Is it no, it's a can, is it?
Yeah, it is, unfortunately. I haven't heard any complaints at work about smell. Um, so I can, and I have asked, and so I assume it's all fine.
It's so hard, isn't it? This is the thing. It's really, really hard to fit training in when, you've got this, yeah, you've got a busy working life, you've got a young family.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, I mean, I think you have more motivation to do it when you're fit.
Mm.
For me, I just don't want to go out. I
No.
mean, I'm too busy. I just bury my nose in the laptop, and it's
Mm,
incredibly difficult. But without that, I think when you're fit, you have that urge. You have that push. Can't
yeah.
lose it. Can't lose it. And it is that sort of paranoia. Yes, if you don't run for a day, it's not going to make any difference to your fitness. But it is also, on the flip side, that is what helps you make sure you go out regularly. And I've
Yeah.
completely lost that. I've completely lost that. I look outside now, the trees are going like this.
Crazy. Yeah. It's super.
Um, but my one tiny saving factor, Mac,
Mm.
he has
Yeah.
to,
Gets you out.
he has to go out.
Yeah.
So I might as well put the trainers on
Yeah.
and
And at least
shuffle.
and go for a walk at least.
Yeah. No, I mean I will
And
jog. I
you will.
will jog.
Oh, that's good.
And that's
That's
what I
good.
need to do more of, really. Yeah.
I
But
do find if I miss even 2 days in a row, the third day, suddenly the motivation has dropped a little bit, only a little bit, because
yeah.
it's so deeply ingrained in me now that I
Mm,
haven't missed too long. But
yeah.
even then, you can feel it starting to seep through maybe I won't go out. Yeah, I can. It's very difficult,
I think.
especially if you're an
Mm.
oncologist.
Well,
Yeah,
indeed. I mean,
yeah.
that's one of my questions.
Yeah.
Particularly as she mentioned that her business partner is off on paternity leave.
Mm,
Um, how on earth do you train and win the spine
mm,
um, when you're clearly a very busy, doctor? That's
yeah.
it's I think it's probably one of the biggest problems a lot of people face. Um,
Mm,
who want to do any running or any racing.
mm,
It's that fitting it in. But I think also um, I think the other thing we mustn't forget is that the training isn't just running.
right. Yeah.
There is the strength work, there is cycling, on a static bike or cycling. There are other ways to get fit for running other than just running. And I think, we forget that and we think, oh, if we're not running every day, we're not getting that fitness in. But
Mm,
there's so many ways. Um,
yeah. I
I'm trying to,
really,
yeah.
you hear so many different things about, oh, you don't lose any fitness if you don't run for 2 weeks, or you don't lose any fitness if you don't run for 3 weeks. Oh, but it's so quick to get it back, though, isn't it, when you start running again? And there's just nothing concrete on that. I think everyone's different.
I think everyone is different. I think it's very difficult to gauge when you're in the moment.
Mm,
Um, I mean, I certainly found when I started to my training started being affected by the menopause in November 2020. And I remember suddenly my legs would start to feel like jelly when I was doing tempo runs.
mm.
Suddenly it was like all the energy was just draining out of my legs, and I literally got all feek and weeble. Oh, Lucy's just arrived. So, but yeah, it's a sort of it's very much a gradual process, and I kind of went on this downward slope for years until
Mm,
I had my knee injury, and then I stopped running completely, and then I realized actually then I fell off the cliff. And actually, that those previous 3 years where I'd been slowly going downhill, I still had an immense amount of fitness from all those years of endurance that back up. But it's
mm.
only when you look back, I thought at the time, oh my God, I'm getting so unfit. But actually, I had tons of it still. Hi, Lucy.
Hi,
Welcome.
Lucy.
Hi, sorry, I was just having a coughing fit.
Oh no. Are you okay?
Good. How are
Oh,
you?
she's gone very small. There we go.
Oh, yeah, I was on a standing desk. Sorry,
Yeah.
my cough is like, oh, it's so bad. So,
I,
I might just go out and cough and then come
No,
back,
that's all
but
right. Oh
all
no,
right.
stick yourself on mute and have a good hack. Is it still a hangover from your? Did you get the sort of asthmatic coughing at the spine again?
Yeah, I think so. I got an inhaler before and I because that was really bad last year. I was hoping that would get me through, but yeah, it was what was limiting me at the end. And it's definitely it's really bad. I mean, it must be bad. It does worry me, like long-term damage. But anyway, it's getting better.
Have you been checked out? I mean, has someone given you a poke and a prod and
No, I mean, I can listen to my own chest.
no.
I don't think
I'm
there's
not sure
anything.
that's a great idea though, is it?
Sorry, anyway, it will settle down. I might before we start, I'll just go out and finish finish the coughing. Sorry.
Oh, well, welcome and
Anyway,
thank you so much and congratulations.
thank you very much.
And
Yeah,
I,
yeah.
I mean, I've really got one question and then I'm going to hand over to Robin. Um, it was kind of answered a little bit. I did do a little bit of stalking on your profile, but my big question is, did it work?
Did what work?
Running the spine, obviously winning was perhaps, a bonus, but running the spine, did it draw a line for you under everything from last year?
Do you know what? I didn't even need to do the race. I realized on the start line, a friend videoed me,
Mm.
and she said, "What does success look like?" And I realized that was I'd already had success. I'd already done what I needed it to do. And I'm sure that's why I had that amazing race because I just on that start line, I was myself again, and I can see the videos, and I can see it. I can just see. I know it sounds weird, but I was back like
Mm.
bubbly, happy, bouncy Lucy, and getting to the start line, yeah, had done it had given me closure. It had banished everything that happened last year, and I could just go out and do that race for me. So yeah, I haven't written my blog yet, but I think I would title it The Spine Take Two. I thought it would be a race for closure, but actually it was a race for me. And it really was. I just was on that start line. I was like, I'm so proud. I've got through this year. I've done everything I needed to do to get here. And I'm just, yeah, so yes, it did, but I didn't actually need to do the race to do that.
Brilliant. Well, fantastic. That's even better, really, isn't it?
You were noticeably bouncy that morning in comparison to pretty much everybody else I spoke to. You were super, super happy, well up for it. Your entourage around you as well. I imagine that sort of helped all the people who were just happy to see you before the start as well.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I didn't know that. I knew Bex was going to be there. So Bex is a partner of Nikki who got the message last year. So I knew Bex was
yeah.
going to be there. But I didn't know the other people were going to be there. So it was just a really nice surprise. And they messaged me the night before. I was like, I mean, I'm not going to have much time to say hello before we start. But yeah, I was just buzzing. It's such a big thing to build up to, and the week of the race is or the 2 weeks is I just find it like you there's so much kit faff, and I actually had a cold 2 weeks out and I was a bit worried about
Mm.
that would be okay. And you're trying to like go to work, particularly in the hospital, like paranoid about getting bugs, and then there's kit everywhere. Yeah, I've got a 4 bedroom house and there was just kit like everywhere. How can I have for you're only allowed like 20 kilos in your drop bag. How can it cover a whole big house? Not that it's a big house, but a whole house. And yeah, so I was just glad to the day before the race close that drop bag, get its 20 kilos. And like just the admin was out there. Now I can do what I love, which is just, big days in the hills.
Amazing. I asked a couple of people how heavy their drop bag was because of the limit. I assumed people were super worried about it, but a couple of people said they didn't even know. So I don't know
Yeah, well,
whether.
they don't weigh them.
Right.
So
Okay.
I think it doesn't really matter if it's 21 kilos, but
Okay.
it is quite hard because you just don't know, like particularly food wise, you don't know what you're going to want to eat. And I I I think everyone probably overpacks, but it's better to have more spare batteries and more merino base layers and more pairs of gloves. And it adds up really quickly. But the biggest thing actually that I put in that was really it probably wasn't that economical with weight was milkshakes, which are actually really good at well protein shakes for the chest.
Mm.
So I was glad I had a bit of space for those.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of good things about chocolate milk as well for for the same sort of reason. Loads of protein, just really good stuff to get in your system to keep you going.
Yeah.
Someone, Katie Treat, asked, "What was your most favorite thing to eat or look at checkpoints?"
At checkpoints, probably the lasagna, but if I'm honest, I didn't really enjoy much apart from
Yeah.
the sausage sandwich in Alston, in Dufton, and I think that's because I'd been like saying like when I get there, let's say 100 miles to go, I'm going to look forward to that. You just so I did eat so well, but it was so hard. It was probably the hardest bit because you just don't want anything. And I made all this tiffin, which is like one of my favorite foods ever, but I probably never want to see this tiffin ever again. Because it's really hard to eat, and I did eat. I'd love to know how much I ate. I did eat really well until the last few hours, and but it's just it gets to a stage where you don't want anything. Your mouth can't. I don't know. I think the enzymes disappear. So like a baby well would just sit there for 15 minutes. Like I can't put it down. Oh, it's disgusting. Um, but yeah, so I didn't really enjoy that much. But the lasagna went down quite well.
Is that something that you practice in your training quite often, different types of food, nutrition, etc., or is it something that you just used to now and you know what your body likes?
Yeah, I'm fairly lucky in that I can eat most things. So I think because it's low intensity, I tend to eat more. So I'm not really a gel person. I did have some gels, but I did mostly make normal food. The gels were actually quite good at the end when I really couldn't be asked to eat anything. But yeah, I mean I guess I eat relatively well. So I mean I can go out for do 50K and stop and have a full lunch halfway round and then keep on shuffling onwards. Interesting, when I was a runner, we were talking about this when I was a triathlete. I had to be so careful about if I was doing a run in the evening, I couldn't eat anything with any greenery at lunch. I had to really plan like the whole day in advance. Where now I could eat a big salad at 4 o'clock and then still run home at 6 o'clock. So I think there's an element of just training and probably, I'm going half the speed that I used to go, so that probably helps.
How have you found the transition from triathlete to ultra running, and what made you make the switch?
It wasn't really a concerted effort. So I stopped triathlon. Well, 2018 was like my last year where I was training and racing professionally. So I was working part-time, but I was still living my life around triathlon at that point. And then 2019, I had this, I called it like my just glory year, where I was still just about fit enough to do races that I wanted to do, but I wasn't training as a professional athlete. So I was still fit, but I wasn't, not everything was revolving around triathlon. And I did some really, like I went to Patagonia, I did Norseman. I went
Awesome.
bike packing around Peru and threw in a race at the start of it just to kind of, cover a bit of the costs. And yeah, but then COVID came. So then I retired properly, like end of triathlon. And then COVID came, and actually that I think that was when I started to discover kind of that I still wanted adventures. So we did things like Everesting on the watt bike and then Everesting outside and started to do longer bike rides. And then yeah, the ultra running thing started, I think, well, when I met my ex, really, and the first holiday we did was the summer of 2021, was it? Yeah, so that I think that was the end of the second lockdown. And we tried to get an Airbnb in Wales and everything was kind of fully booked. So we ended up walking across Wales. And that was, yeah, that was, I just fell in, how I was like, how, because I was still quite fit then. And I was like, how hard can walking across Wales be? And I realized walking is really quite hard. But that was where my love for long distance days by foot kind of really started. And then I think I did the lap that year as my first ultra, but it was never going to be competitive. And then yeah, I think I'd heard about the spine. We started to listen to podcasts about the spine, and just that little seed grew. And then over the next couple of years, started to get better, started to do a bit more shuffling, and yeah, just gradually kind of fell in love with yeah, big days on the hills. But it's never really about racing. It was just about enjoyment and that exploration, adventure kind of holiday.
It-
Adventure is, yeah, something we can all identify with, I think, in ultra running, isn't it?
yeah. Do you think when you took the pressure off your professional career that 2019 was like this glory year because you mentally were enjoying it rather than sort of going for positioning?
No, I mean, I always enjoyed it. It's like anyone who followed me from triathlon would, yeah, would see how much I loved it, and
Okay.
that's why I decided to retire actually. So I remember it really clearly. I was out in, it was 2018, and I'd had a surprisingly amazing year. I think I'd won three Ironman races that year, and I was going out to Patagonia at the end of the year, to do this crazy extreme triathlon, which they'd invited me out to do. And I was just like, this is going to be my retirement race. And because of it, I had that in the diary. I decided I'd do some shorter races just to stay fit because I was working part time, and I was out in Mallorca, and I did the race and I won the race. And um, my sister said, "Oh, you're never going to retire. Like, why would you? You love it too much. You're making quite a lot of money." But we'd just started the charity at that point, the 5K Your Way initiative. So maybe a few months before. And I got back from that race and I'd won it, and I had made money. You know, it's not like ultra money, not huge amounts of money, but I had made a significant amount of money. And I was looking at all the pictures of the 5K Your Way group in Nottingham, and I thought, do you know what? I want to be there. And that was when I knew that was when I knew that I was ready to retire, and I'd found something else in my life that meant as much. And I knew that I wasn't prepared to keep making those sacrifices. And being the best athlete I wasn't going to be the driving force going forwards. And I just remember it so clearly, and it was really nice. And now when I look back, I feel so grateful that I retired on my terms, when I was still winning, because
Mm.
so few people get to do that. And yeah, you know, I might have made a bit more money. I could have dragged the sponsors out a bit longer, but I retired when I was still loving it, and that's on my terms, and that's something that I will always be so grateful for because yeah, so few people get to do that. I
Mm.
can't remember what the question was, but it's something about taking it seriously.
Well, yeah, and yeah, no, that's fantastic. Have you been approached now as a as an ultra runner? Have you got any brands that are knocking on the door saying, "Hey, be ours"?
No, yeah, again, it's like I don't want to negate what I've done, but I feel like, it's really surreal actually because I've had my athletic career, um, and the spine race I mean it wasn't ever about performance. It was about doing it once, and then it was about finding closure myself. But actually when I was racing it was about performance, but it was performance for me. But I did really enjoy racing Robin. Like I loved when I realized that, you know, I was catching her, and then we had those few
Mm.
hours running together, and then and she's a friend, and it was so cool, and we were running along together. I was like, Robin, it feels like we're just out on a jog. And then I was like, we're winning the spine race. Like this is amazing. We're just having a jog and we're winning the spine race. But yeah, I don't want to, I don't feel the need to do another athletic career. And I don't know what I'll do after this, but I don't want to be chasing, you know, just because you find you're quite good at something, that doesn't mean that you necessarily need to. I would say do things because never do things just because you can, like do things because you really want to. So I'm I'm really trying, and I don't want this to sound arrogantly, but I'm trying to just to not get sucked into making it all about performance, and not get sucked into to doing it seriously just because maybe I could do. Um, but actually stay true to my values and think, actually, what do I really want to do? But I do love the adventures, and sometimes you can only push yourself in a race, and the community of people I met, like particularly awesome women, like so many awesome women. That's definitely been one of the highlights is meeting other people who love it as much as me. Because I think when you fall into this, you know, everyone around me was like, it's crazy, Goss. Like, who goes out and does 50, 60K in a day? And then you meet these women and there are other women like me. There are other women who just love the same kind of craziness. And that's definitely been a big highlight.
All the women from that super recce weekend, like we've been fortunate to speak to Robin before and Mel, uh,
Yeah.
and now you as well. Robin actually left a message on Instagram saying, "Lucy Quadzilla Gossage, you are a machine, and we love you."
Oh, oh
With
no,
lots of lots of
what?
exclamation marks and kisses.
Yeah, Robin and I actually know each other from a while back. So she was very good friends with her. Anyway, through friends of friends, we ended up doing this swim run together. So that was in my, I say glory year. I was thinking that sounds a bit arrogant, but that year I was talking about, and we were doing a swim run in the CDRs, and I was doing it with an old school friend, and Robin was doing it with a friend, another friend of mine. So we were all in this house together. So we did a couple of swim runs together around that time, and that's when I kind of got to know her. And then I remember, when I wasn't doing ultra running, but starting to get interested in it, like looking at the arc, and I was like, "Bloody hell, that's Robin Cassidy's in second place. Like, how has she turned into this amazing person? Not amazing person, but this amazing runner." And yeah, it's just been incredible watching her like progress, and she's just on the up, and I can't wait to see what she will do because for the first time in the spine she absolutely smashed it, and she's a formidable athlete. She works so hard. She's got the same attitude as me, like just keep it fun but work really hard. And yeah, and she does it all on her own as well, as in she don't, she's not got highbrow coaches, and I think she's got someone coaching it, supporting her, but yeah, she's awesome, so she'll go
Is.
big stuff.
It was great that you shared those miles together, but it was also it was fun as a spectator to sort of watch just your progress throughout the race, especially with Nikki's updates on your Instagram, which were amazing.
Yeah.
My wife wanted to ask you a question. Was how's Tim?
Yes, I
Oh,
wanted to know what happened to Tim.
we went back. So I went back to see Tim finish, and we almost missed him because we got caught by sheep. There was this farmer with loads of sheep on the road. Yeah, good old Tim. I mean, that's what I love about, like, how crazy is it that you can? I think we spent about 36 hours together and never
Wow.
met him. Still don't know that much about him. We kind of, I think he came into Hebden, the first checkpoint, just after me, but left before me because I'm a faffer. And then I didn't have the out and back routes, like the diversion on my Garmin. So I was like, where the hell are we going? And then saw these lights, so sprinted to catch up with, I think he was with Nikki. And yeah, then I like pushed past. Tim stayed with me. I think I dropped in quite early, and then he sprinted to catch up with me. And then we just spent the whole next 36 hours together, or 30, whatever it was. It was a long time. Um,
Mm.
and yeah, it's crazy that you can do that with someone you don't know. And I could tell at the end, like I was probably a bit quicker, and yeah, he was suffering a bit. So we split up on that flat bit to running into Langenbeck. And I'm glad, to be honest, because I really did, I didn't, when you know that you're like at the start we were very similar, and then I could tell that I was just
Yeah.
probably going harder than he should be going, and I really didn't want to ruin his race. But yeah, we had a great time, and actually he probably won the race for me because he decided to sleep in Keld, which is, so that was maybe 9 o'clock on night two. So we didn't sleep in Hawes, a second checkpoint, so that's 108 miles. And then Schonefeld is, oh, it was awful because the snow was melting. So that's one of the big mountains or hills or
Mm.
whatever you call it. But the snow was melting, but you couldn't see any path. It was still thick snow. You'd stand on this snow and you just end up falling like chest high into drifts. It was really slow going. I was on the front doing all the nav. Tim was, I think, just like hanging on. And and we got to the bottom, and he was like, "Yeah, I'm going to sleep in Keld." And I wasn't really sure about it. And then I realized actually we were both slowing down. I was starting to fall over. So I bit the bullet. And I was like, right, I'm going to come to Keld with you. I think he was planning a longer sleep, but I'm like, I just do an hour or whatever I sleep for. And Keld's this village hall, so it's maybe a quarter of a mile off the track, which again, like it's so short, but actually it
Mm.
does hurt going off the track. But it was this village hall, it was this heater, they had a kettle, they had cake, and yeah, we like basically just put our sleeping bags down by the fire. I took off all my kit to dry it and ended up burning it all. So it's all like completely burnt. But yeah, it slept for an hour and 10 minutes, and that won me the race. I'm convinced by it because after that, Tim was going to stay a bit longer, but then I woke up and he was like, "Oh, do you mind if I come with you?" I was like, "Not at all, but I'm not going to wait." He was ready before me because I'm a faffer. But then I was on a mission after that. I was like, felt like I was gone back to the start again. It's amazing how such a short sleep can regenerate you. And Yeah, and that I think that's when we started to put time in Robin, from what I can tell. And at the end of that, I was only maybe 10 minutes behind her. But I guess I knew at that point I'd banked that sleep and she hadn't, and I was moving quicker. So I felt, even though we were running together, I just felt like I was doing my race, and it was wonderful having her with me. But I was very happy that I wasn't doing what she was doing. I was doing what I was doing. So yeah, Tim won me the race really by having that sleep, because I wouldn't have done that on my own.
God bless you, Tim.
God bless you, Tim.
So last year, did you struggle with sleep a little bit last year? How did that? Because I remember seeing one of the many like Instagram, YouTube videos of it being so great that you'd managed to get that big chunk of sleep. What was the sleep like on the first spine for you?
So yeah, the first one, I tried to sleep in the checkpoints and it just didn't work. So I tried to sleep at Hawes, it didn't work. I did sleep at Langdon Beck and had an hour and 10. And then I wasted time at Alston, I wasted time at Bellingham. And I just realized I find it really hard to sleep in the checkpoints because they're so noisy, they're so busy. And you come from like being alone on the trail, or, well, this year with Tim, but still effectively in silence, to then this like noisy checkpoint. There's all the stress about admin and sourcing kit, etc. So I didn't really have a strategy, but I did have a strategy not to use the checkpoints unless I felt that I was really going to be able to sleep there. And it was a gamble, but obviously when you've done it once, kind of some of the other luxury places that you can sleep. So Greenhead Toilets, for example, and Hornistead Farm. And I just thought the checkpoints didn't work. So there's no point doing what didn't work last year. I need to try something different. And I think that's why I was like, I'm going to do Keld. I'll give it a go. It feels like you're wasting, it's too early, but I'm going to give it a go. And then when I woke up, I was like, right, I have to prove this sleep worked. And it so did. Like I made up that time. I reckon about 3 hours. I made that hour back.
I think that's what Kim said, isn't it? I mean, the
Yeah.
key here, the trend has always been to, push through as much as you can in order to get to the end. But actually, sleeping is key, and and doing it from the start makes such a difference to your performance and how you feel. But as you say,
Yeah, I reckon each sleep basically gave me a mile an hour quicker. And when you're only talking about moving like 2.5 to 3 and 3.5 to 4, a mile and a half difference is like, if you're moving 4 miles an hour, you're smashing it. You're
Mm.
actually smashing it. If you're moving 3 miles an hour at the end, you're doing pretty well. So if you go from moving, say, 4.5K an hour to 6K an hour, you make up that sleep time super quickly. And I found it just did that. And I think the only thing, if I was to, to make this race even better in terms of control, things that I could control, because I couldn't control my chest, and that was probably one of my limiters, but I think that's kind of out of my control. But maybe I would have had a sleep before I went up the Cheviot, because I think that might have, half an hour there might have just given me an hour and a half over the Cheviots. But by that point you're so close and it was daylight, and but yeah, I think that's the only kind of strategic thing, other than not faffing, because I am a faffer. Um, but yeah, it's really interesting. I don't know, when did Kim sleep? Did he sleep a lot more as well?
yes. I can't remember specifically where, but that was one of his strategies was to sleep.
Mm.
Yeah, a bit
He
more.
couldn't, yeah, he recognized that he needed to sleep earlier in the race
Mm, mm.
because he'd made the mistakes previously
Yes.
with not letting his body recover when
Slept on
it
the
needed
first
to.
night rather than going all the way through and then trying to sleep on the second night.
Oh, interesting. So I think the first night would have been too hard for me. Like you're just full of it. I wouldn't have, for me, it wouldn't have worked sleeping there. But early on the second night was definitely a good decision. But everyone's different, and I think that's why Robin, what she did was incredible, first time in the spine, because she doesn't have all that knowledge that I have from making so many mistakes last year. So I think that's why if she goes back next year, I can't, I'd be amazed. I can't wait to see what she does.
Mel Sykes asked, how many trail naps did you have outside of checkpoints? But obviously, you didn't really sleep at the checkpoints, but how
Yeah,
did that?
not that many actually. So I had about 10 minutes. So I left when Robin and I split up. So I think I put maybe a bit of time into over Cosfell, really not very much, 15 minutes. So I came into Alston, she came in 15 minutes later, and this was 5 o'clock, and I made the decision before this, I wasn't going to sleep there. Which always felt a gamble because I was tired, but it just didn't work last time. And she was going to sleep there. So we kind of were like, this has been amazing. Whatever happens, it's been awesome. We're both awesome. See whose strategy works out best. And I did sleep. There's a railway because there's a little diversion, takes you onto Knoll Railway, and there was a station, so maybe 9 o'clock or something. I did have 10 minutes there. Then I slept in Greenhead toilets, luxury, for about an hour. And I maybe had a couple and maybe just one on Hadrian's Wall, like 5 minutes. And I think that was it, really. I could have done with one over the Cheviots, but I was with John Kelly and it was a bit cold. As I say, I think I should have had one before the sun went down. I think that would have given me quite a lot of time back. But yeah, I didn't have that many trail naps. Whereas last year I was literally trail napping every 20 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, your experience last year sounded really quite um uncomfortable. You're sleepwalking and
Oh, it
that's
was
kind of
terrifying.
horrible, actually.
It was the most terrifying I can't even describe because I was compass mentis when I was awake, so I knew what was happening, and then I just
Mm.
fall asleep and wake up off the path or back the way I is the most utterly terrifying experience I've ever had. Um,
You're
but
watching
also
your Strava profile, but then when you
I
put the
was
video up on Instagram, it's like, that was asleep.
I do know, I was so looking forward to going over last year's Strava before the race because I just thought I can't wait to see what I actually did last year. And there were so many bits where I was just going, doing stupid stuff. Be like, God, I was really confused way before I realized I was. But I think this year, because I was so much quicker, the sleep, I had what I don't know how many hours quicker, but it was what was it? It's quite a lot, like 18,
Oh,
20,
it
something
was a
like
lot,
that.
yeah.
So I effectively had almost another day less to go through. So I'm sure the
Mm.
trail maps would have come in if it was another 50 miles and I'd had to go like extend that sleep deprivation.
What was the last, well, let's say the last stretch. How long were you with John Kelly for? It was a long time.
Yeah, so I caught him coming into Burness and I didn't realize I remember meeting Aaron, one of the media guys, and like he was running with me, like getting some footage. And I was like, who's won the men's race? This was like maybe a few 10K, 5K from Burness. He's like, what do you mean? I was like, who's won the men's race? And he said, well, it's still going. I was like, what? Like, and he said, yeah, Kim's like 3 hours up the road. It's like, seriously? And I think that was the first time I was like, bloody hell, what am I doing here? Like, how am I that close to the men's race? And then John Kelly was there, and I think John was having a tough time. So I just assumed John was in it. And my thoughts were actually John's having a shocker, fair play for finishing, because there's no need for him to finish.
Mm.
Um, and I passed him, and then he came into Burness when I was there. I think I left a little bit before him. But then my chest, that was when I realized, well, in fact, just before I caught John, that was because I almost caught him at the bottom of a really steep uphill. And that was when I literally got within a few meters of him without really trying. But then I realized, God, my chest is really bad. I can't get out these hills. And so he then like gapped me without, I don't think he tried, but then he did look back and he was like, oh, thank God I've got a gap because he then put in a surge. Um, but that was the first time I realized my chest was really limiting me on the uphills. Anyway, so going out of Burness, starting to climb, I was like, oh, my chest is really bad. I'm just going to lie down for a couple of minutes and try and sort it out. He came past me. He was really nice. He was like, I was like, I'm just going to have a little nap. He said, don't forget to set your alarm. If you do it more than 30 minutes, you'll be out. And he said then set off. He was a bit ahead of me. I think he stopped in hut one. I didn't. I went past him without realizing. And then he came up behind me. He was like, do you want company? And started regaling me with some tales. I don't know what. I do remember saying I'm normally quite chatty, but I'm not really very chatty now. But to be fair, he could have easily like run that bit quicker than me. But I think he just decided he'd keep me company, and I think he was tired, but physically, my chest was really bad on the uphills. Everything else I was kind of okay, but the uphills was bad. Yeah, he's a nice guy. And then yeah, to give me the finish line on my own, I felt was really gentlemanly.
Oh.
And we talked about it coming down. He was like, yeah, I can't do the accent, but so let's talk about the finish. And he's like, I'll stand beside. I was like, no, just come in with me. But yeah, and I thought that's what he was going to do, but he didn't. So that was really nice.
It's awesome. So, recce's, did you manage to recce the? Oh, you'd already done it, I suppose, the year before. How do you? Let's go different question. How do you fit in training as an oncologist, and what sort of mileage do you manage to do a week?
Um, Mileage really varies. So I would say, so I had really bad sciatica that started actually just before that weekend we did a recce with all the girls the start of November, and that was when I first noticed it, and it just progressed and progressed and progressed, and it was like I was taking amitriptyline, I was taking naproxen. It was really bad. Um, and it made running really unpleasant and really slow. And like actual running, I was almost top. I can't. I don't know anyone who's had sciatica. It's horrible. There were times where I was leaving work and I was literally hopping. But I had 5 days off, but I did actually keep going. And my rationale was, do you know what? It doesn't matter if I'm running super slow because in the spine, you don't need to run anything quicker than a 10-minute mile, really. Um, and actually, the spine's really about moving with a pack. So I did do a lot of miles very slowly, but with a pack that was probably, without realizing it, a bit heavier than the spine pack. Um, and yeah, it was. So I wouldn't say I was as fit as I would have wanted to be necessarily going into the spine, but I had done a lot of miles with the pack, and actually I realized, do you know what? Even with this sciatica, I'm moving better than I was last year with this pack. So my actual running pace was so slow. Um, so yeah, I guess that just I broke my collarbone once before the World Champs as a triathlete. And it really helped me realize that alternative training can actually, sometimes when you think on paper, this isn't the training I wanted to do, you can actually adapt it and get quite a lot of quality from different approaches. So yeah, so in terms of training, most of my training is just commuting. So I run or bike to work each way, every day.
What's
And
that
it's only
distance?
well, it's as long as you make it. So the shortest is 5.5, 5 and 6 miles, something like that. But it's yeah, I generally go longer one way or the other. But I'm only in the hospital 3 days. Work from home the other 2 days. But yeah, it's yeah. So well, more recently actually, I've been in the hospital 4 days because that's the other thing. I don't want to make excuses, but I've never worked this hard because in September the guy that I share my clinics with left. He's had a baby. He's moved up north. So I've been effectively doing two people's jobs. So I was I was so stressed. I've never been this stressed. I've never understood how people could go off work with stress. And for the first time, I thought, you know what? I'm not that far off it. Like there's just too much. There's too much work. I'm juggling too much, and they're complex. It's oncology. I've got a lot of young patients. They're people. It's not like you can just leave it and switch off and forget about it. Um, and when I was thinking about signing up for the spine, a friend, Bex, actually said to me, she's like, well, how, because we knew what was going to happen with work. And she said, well, how do you think you'll manage with work? And my response was actually, I think I need something like the spine in the diary to make me prioritize the days in the hills. And it was so the right thing, because I think without the spine, I don't think I'd have got through those last 4 months just because it was so busy at work. And I was so tired at weekends. The last thing I really wanted to do was go and do big days, kind of wrecking, etc. But actually, that's what I needed for my kind of sanity and mental health. Um, but I was very mindful. I was literally on a cliff edge of stress levels. I think everyone around me was mindful of that. Um, and I'm lucky, really, that I got to the end of it and had enough, had not dug too big a hole to recover before the spine race. So yeah, that's a lot of waffle. But anyway, most of my training is commuting. I do 2 strength sessions a week, which I don't like doing, but I make myself a yoga session. I still try and do a hard watt bike once a week. And still do a fair bit of biking. I try and do a longish
Mm.
ride once a week. So I keep biking in there. And mileage, it's really variable. just, when you're doing the spine, you go and do big weekends. You can suddenly do a 100-mile week, or you can do 50-mile week. Just really
Yeah.
vary. But there's a lot of hopping with the sciatica.
Yeah.
Oh. Is that so is your business partner still so is he gone? I mean, are you going to replace him? Is there light at the end of the tunnel for you
My
work-wise?
business partner, I'd love to say. I mean, he's an NHS colleague.
Oh,
I
sorry.
wouldn't call him a business partner.
Oh, right. Sorry. But well, the chap who you were doing the with.
Yeah, no, he has left, and we've just got a locum who started the week before the spine to help out, and
Wow.
we've actually just this week appointed someone who will be starting in July. So yeah, life's already better. But
And presumably post spine. What's recovery been looking like? Because that's going to take a while as well, isn't it? And for you to have to go back into work and a stressful job.
yeah, it's been I love it because everyone at work gets sucked into the spine, and they never used to with triathlon, but they all get like they love it, and they're all. One of my colleagues, the person I share an office with, she said, "Do you know what? It's like it brought the whole department together, everyone tracking you."
Oh,
Um, but yeah, you know what it's like after a week off anyway. Because I'm head of service as well, so I've got all that nonsense of sorting out like all the problems in the department. Um, but yeah, you get back and your inbox is overflowing. And then you're a bit tired. But actually, I'm not training, so I've got a bit more time. But I've had a surprising amount of media interest as well after the race. So trying to juggle all of that around work's been interesting. But yeah, fundamentally, I do love my job. It's just that it had just got too stressful trying to manage this burden because they are, I love it because I'm working with people who are living with cancer, and I have a lot of younger patients who give me the most, but you can't just do a half-hearted job. They're people, and yeah, when it gets overwhelming, you can't it just yeah, it had got overwhelming, but I survived it, and I've now got support. And I guess my point of all of that, telling all of that, I guess was sometimes you don't need to do the very best training to put together a good race, and I guess it's about your mental kind of approach to it,
mm,
and your mindset going into it. And I
motivation.
learned to kind of change my mindset. Okay, to find ways of looking for positives in things that might not actually, that otherwise I'd have got really stressed. Oh, I'm only running 9-minute miles. Well, actually, for the spine, 9 minutes miles is sprinting. It's irrelevant. I don't need to. But as someone who normally never runs slower than 8-minute miles, and that's not quite true anymore. I'm very, very rarely run quicker than 8-minute miles, but 9-minute miles anyway. My point is that's really, really slow for me, and to not be able to run quicker than that. It's like, oh my God, what the hell's going on? Like, it's like I literally couldn't move my left. I couldn't hop until 5 days before the spine. I was like, I can finally hop again. But that just shows the power of mindset and just doing what you can do.
You've probably got more excuses than anyone could have, but you choose not to let it affect you, and like you still go out and smash it. Like there's so many things here with like sciatica and a really stressful like emotional job, especially with someone else off. The fact that you're still able to get out and do the training on the weekends and go out and have such an amazing performance as well as everything else that happened on top of last year is just it's so inspiring. I don't know how you do it, Lucy. To be honest, it's one hell of a story. So there's
Probably
no,
why the media is so
yeah,
interested.
exactly, yeah.
But I think, well, thank you. Yeah, I think one of the things triathlon gave me is knowing what I need, and actually I think psychology and mindset is so important, and having that conversation with Bex actually, and realizing that those days on the hills would be what kept me sane. It was so true. And even when like there were times when I didn't really enjoy them because our sciatica was so bad. And the sciatica would be like really bad for 10 miles and then it would ease off. So at the end of 40 miles or 30 miles or whatever, it would probably be fine. But it didn't make it necessarily fun in the way that it is when you're pain free and you're just running and you just feel amazing. but it was still time away from everything, time where I could switch off from work, time where I couldn't access my computer or, or sometimes you might even be thinking about patients, but it's kind of processing it and like helping you deal with it. And I think learning that about myself, that that's what I need was really powerful. And the spine, after all, like, yes, it is physical, of course it is, but it's far more psychological and problem solving. And I think what those last 4 months or this whole year has given me is problem solving around keeping myself sane. And that's what I've actually got really good at in adversity. So probably that's what, helped me pull together the race that I pulled together.
You you had that chapter in that book, didn't you? You did talking about the challenging the unconscious limiting beliefs. Do you attribute quite a lot of that to that mindset? Have you grown that? Have you learned that? Have you taught that to yourself? How did you even how is it even possible to challenge an unconscious belief when by definition you're not sure you don't even know you have it?
Yeah, so that's interesting. So I guess firstly I did do the work on discovering my like unconscious beliefs. So that was a bit so Helen Davis, who's a psychologist, when she was doing her psychology training, she did a lot of work with me. Not actually a lot of work, but some really impactful work with me, helping me like think about sports psychology. And when she approached it with me and said, can I help you? So we used to swim together and I was a rubbish swimmer. And even now I should say, well, you weren't rubbish swimmer, but I was compared to the other pro triathletes. And I'd always turn up at swim sessions. I'd be like, I can't do these times. This is ridiculous. And then I'll go and do the times. And she's like, Lucy, you need to get your head out of saying you're a rubbish swimmer. So she did some really powerful work with me that changed everything about how I thought about racing. And when I broke my collarbone 8 weeks before the World Championships, that psychology really came into force and it allowed me to finished in ninth place that year, despite breaking my collarbone 8 weeks before. And all of that was psychology, because my physical condition wasn't where it would have been. And we actually then, a few years later, we created this Iron Mind, which is a series of 6 videos aiming to help people. They are actually really good, kind of do their own psychology courses. So you watch a video, there are some workshops, and it takes you through getting your mindset ready for an endurance event. Um, what was the question? I've gone off on a
Well,
tangent.
about how the sort of challenging your unconscious beliefs, how that helped you, and how do you even challenge something that you don't know you have?
Yeah, so sorry, I've forgotten the actual question. So yeah, so Iron Mind was aiming to help other people do what I did for myself. But I think having done that work, it almost is somewhat subconscious. So my thoughts and there were times when the sciatica was bad where I did think, actually, am I going to be able to get to the spine? And I've had it before and I know it crescendos and gets really bad. And then I know it gets a bit better. It gets better with time. And I know that will be about 6 to 8 weeks. But it just happened. It was those 8 weeks running into the spine. But I think I almost automatically, instead of going, oh, I'm only running 9 30-minute miles or whatever, shuffling home from work, I turn it through to, well, actually, something's always hurting in the spine race. This is quite good training. And again, I was like, well, I can't necessarily run quickly, but I don't need to run quickly. What I can do is do big miles with the pack on my back. And then I realized that, I was actually, so a lot of it is like finding ways to get yourself confident. And I look on Strava and I say, well, actually, I'm running the downhills. I'm nowhere near as fit on the uphills, but I'm running the downhills much better than I was last year. And then I kind of told myself, well, actually, it is getting better, and the chances are it is going to be fine by the spine race. So imagine you've done all this training with one leg. Imagine what's going to be like when you've got two legs that are working in the spine race. But all of that was almost happening subconsciously. And I think a few years ago, it would have been a negative spiral and panic and stop
Mhm.
training, spine races off. And I did think for me, it was really important to do the spine race. And I felt like I needed to do the spine race to move on. So maybe that was part of it. But I think once you've invested in yourself, or in your kind of understanding your psychology, then it can be so helpful in all walks of life going forwards.
Mhm.
It's especially it happens a lot when people have a shift work related job. with limiting beliefs like I don't have time to get out to go for my runs because I don't know what my shifts are and it's not going to fit in. I'm not going to be able to do it. Whereas you've like recognized every part of your working week, your life, and injuries past and present, and made it work for you. And it's something that I need to learn as well, and I'm sure many others need to as well. Um, yes, that's it's really nice to hear that you've got it sussed within yourself. Have you got a coach or anything like that? Is it some? It sounds like something you need to pass on to other people.
No, I've never really had a coach, not even in triathlon. I had people who advised me, but yeah, I didn't, people be amazed by, or were amazed that I didn't really have a triathlon coach. But yeah, I had lots of people that I sought advice from. But I find for me, like lots of people, we're all so busy. So I think finding ways to make training part of your life, and for me, commuting is so good. So I don't do intervals. I do it. I'll try and do if I can make myself a hard watt bike. So I guess I get that kind of VO2 max stimulus on the watt bike. I'm too old to do to do intervals and get injured. But yeah, having that commuting, it's free and it means so I tend to cycle in on a Monday a long way round, so 2 hours, and then run home Monday evening, run in Tuesday, run home Tuesday, run in Thursday, cycle home Thursday. And then Wednesday and Fridays I'll do the strength sessions and whatever else is going on. But it's non-negotiable. There's no, Tuesday night after clinic at 6:30, you're knackered, you still got to run home. There's no thought about it. There's no, oh, I can't be
Mm.
bothered, I'm too tired, maybe I should recover. You've got to get home. And generally when you're out there, you feel okay. So I think finding ways to make training non-negotiable and just
Bits,
in
yeah.
around whatever else you're doing is so good for people who are busy because of work or families or whatever else is going on.
But yeah, I've always been jealous of people who can run commute because you're making it into something you have to do anyway, so you might as well run. Um,
Yeah, and
it's
when you wake up and it's wet and it's cold and you know
mm,
you would don't no one wants to go for a run, but I've still got to get to work and it's just
yeah.
it's done. It's so I just yeah, I made a rule. I'm not going to drive to work. And I haven't done for 5 years now, and it's so easy.
Do you mentally kind of is part of your tr sort of mental training, if you like? Do you think about um the things that put you off or the bad side of things, and you think, right, well, if I think about that, I need to twist it and turn it into the positive of X, Y, and Z, so that you're prepared that when your mind goes, I can't do this, you've already got an answer for that by saying, well, actually, you can do this, or you can do it this way, and then it's just as beneficial. Have you got to kind of prepare these arguments in your head ahead of the time?
Not really, no. I mean, with the commuting, it's just there's no choice. So, like,
No,
there was no negotiation really. I'm like a walk, but it will take twice as long. So,
but you
um,
made that decision a long time ago. You came up
yeah,
with that answer. So that this is I don't really want to. Yeah, but I have to get to work. It's like you're
yeah,
answering that with something, or even if it's on the trail, I can't get up this hill. Well, you can because you already know you can make it up this hill because you did it last year, or whatever it is.
yeah, yeah. It's interesting. So I had one really low patch in the spine, which was night three, and it was maybe 2 or 3 miles from Hornistead Farm. So I'd spent the whole night on my own. So I'd left Robin at 5 o'clock at Alston and then had gone across probably that I think the worst bit of the course, like those that moor going over to Greenheads, which is just boggy. It's difficult navigation. There's nothing there. Didn't really see anyone either because there wasn't really anyone around me. Had had a little sleep at Greenhead at the start of the wall, and then the whole of Hadrian's Wall, and that's when I started to get really tired. And I think it was raining, so I couldn't stop um, for a trail nap, and that was the low point. And I do remember. Well, I actually videoed it because I don't think I'd remember it otherwise. I'm so glad I videoed it. I just started crying, and something within me made me get my phone out,
I
and
saw that.
and
That
I
was
it's really
incredible.
it's really hard watching it back, but I I've almost blocked that out. I wouldn't have remembered it otherwise. But looking it back, I was in such a dark place, and I was just like, I don't know, like, when's the sun going to come up? The night's been so long, and just felt like this little girl. And I'm so glad I've got that video because it does really, your brains do block out the really traumatic stuff, and that shows how hard that point was. But you do come through the other side, and there were times climbing those last hills when my chest, I mean, I was literally kind of heaving over my poles after 10 steps trying to get my breath. And I remember thinking, how long to the top of this hill? How long to the top of this hill? But yeah, and never at any point did I think about stopping. I mean, what do you do if you stop? Where do you stop? Me stopping 2 miles
Get
out
cold.
instead is not going to help anyone, is it?
No.
And the same on the top of the tube. It's not going to help me if I just stop. So you may as well keep moving forwards.
That's why it seems so important to buddy up with people on long races like this, because I can imagine that it'd be so easy to get in your own head, especially with 16 hours ish of darkness most nights. It's going to be really difficult to keep the nagging hard part of your thoughts from breaking your race apart. So do people tend to seek each other out to try and help each other through the race?
I don't know. I think it's got to form naturally. And Tim and I, like at the start, so I think Tim would agree. I was probably always the stronger out of the two of us. But the first kind of 50 miles we were together, whenever I was having a little bit of a dip, he was there to keep the pace being pushed. And I found just having someone there, there's a bit of banter, there's a bit of, we didn't talk that much, but there's a bit of, yeah, we're suffering in solidarity, but also you're accountable to someone. So when there's a choice as to whether you shuffle or you walk, when Tim was there, I was like, right, well, we're shuffling this bit. And I think Tim was something like, bloody hell, can't we just walk? But you're almost accountable to someone. You're like, this is a flat bit, there's no reason to walk this bit, let's shuffle. And I'm sure we definitely know, particularly coming up to Malham, that there's a long flat stretch on the river that just goes on and on and on and on. And we moved so well with that. And we were just picking people off. And I think every time we saw a head torch in the distance, Tim's heart would sink. Because we were like, oh my God, now she's got a maggot to chase. And I'd be like clawing them in. And but he was just there, and it was great. It was really good. So I think having someone there does make you accountable. I do wonder at the end, like, it was great being with John. I think it did stop me maybe doing my own race for that last bit. Again, it was kind of done by then. I just needed to get to the finish. But maybe I would have been made some slightly more sensible decisions had I been on my own. Maybe I'd have collapsed in a hole and not finished. Who knows?
It all happened for a reason, and it was a joy to watch. You mentioned that you'd walked across Wales, and obviously there's quite a famous race that happens to go across most of Wales called the Dragon's Back. Is that anything that would you consider doing that?
Well, I've actually done that route twice now.
Right.
So, so with my ex, the first year we walked across Wales, and then we tried to do the Dragon's Back route, self-supported, over the same amount of time the next year. Um, and I tore my quad really badly coming down Snowdon the first day. So the extent that I couldn't run anything other than a slight uphill. I couldn't even run on the flat until the last day. So it was basically marching. And so we missed out some of the mountains. So we did cross Wales again we did the same distance, but we missed out the mountains. So that was like unfinished business for me. So then the next year, which is the year before last, I decided I had some extra holiday and I was going to go back, and he decided to come with me. And I just had this mission that I wanted to do that route and do it properly. And I didn't manage to. He actually got injured, so he ended up doing the marching that I did. So we finished, we did kind of stayed in the same places. But yeah, I did do that route. It is really hard, and we did it self-supported. So kind of I think the second year we sent food top-ups to kind of B&Bs and things, because the first year that was part of the problem. We were, after every day we were getting in so late, we'd missed dinner, and then we'd have to wait for breakfast in the hotel, and then it was this ever exponential circle of never getting food, and like that whole kind of trying to manage all of that. So yeah, I have done the route now. Um, Whether I do the race, I don't know.
13
Yeah.
Valleys, I saw you did.
I did that route as well. Yeah, that was, I
Yeah,
enjoyed that. Yeah, that was cool.
that would be
Yeah,
that would be a good race as well.
yeah, that looked good. I did Lakeland 100 this year, which was
Mm,
fun.
mm,
Yeah.
mm.
Yeah,
And
that was
you did the GR221 as well. You did it a year after I did it. It's such a lovely
Oh,
route.
Mallorca.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah, that was awesome. Yeah, me and Bex did that this year. That was really fun. It was and
yeah.
lovely hotels and B&Bs and yeah, food and stuff. Yeah, that was we ate really well on that one.
Yeah. Did you go sea to sea or did you end in Pollenza?
No, it started in Palencia and finished in, was it
Ah,
Palermo or wherever we finished? I can't remember where it finished. Um,
yeah. It's an
yeah.
odd place in the middle of nowhere down the bottom, isn't it? Yeah.
And yeah, I
I
think
went
we
north.
Andrax, we got the bus back.
Mm,
Yeah, that was cool. I really enjoyed that. I just love it. I love the point to points. I really love that. Just
mm.
putting a little bag on your back and setting off and getting to where you get to.
Yeah, it's definitely it turns it into a journey, doesn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
I've
Mm.
got a couple more questions from people from Instagram, if that's all right, Lucy.
Hmm.
Mrs. McFly 1980 uh, asks, this might be a basic question, but I'm interested in what trainers and socks Lucy wore.
So I wore Hoka Mafatis, which last year I used the Hoka Speed Goats. The Mafatis have got a bit better grip.
Yeah,
So I really like those. And then socks, I can't remember who told me this, but I use merino toe socks, those are Ninja ones, and the deck
yeah.
shells, and I change them at every checkpoint. And it worked really well. I put trench foot on my feet each checkpoint, a little bit of Gaywall's foot cream,
Mm.
and yeah, and those socks. So it worked really well. I had a couple of blisters on my big toes, but minor ones. I just put a Compeed on, and other than that, my feet were good.
And did you not use a ultimate direction pack from Beta?
From Beta.
Did you have an ultimate direction
I
pack?
did have an ultimate direction pack. And what's the 30, 20 litre one? 20
Yeah,
litre. Yeah, and then I had an OMM front pack on it, which is actually really good because last year I didn't have anywhere to store like access stuff, and having the front pack, I could just kind of put my
yeah,
gloves, food, and bits and bobs in it.
So many people spoke about that because I'd never because I've not done a race this size before, and then obviously seeing everyone ready at the start, see everyone with these OMM and these geeky hiker little packs on, and I'd seen a picture of them before and gone, who gets those and what on earth are they for? But then after speaking with people, you can put your food in there. People have struggled with sort of fueling on a longer race. It's so accessible and right in front of you.
mm,
They're a great idea, aren't they?
Yeah, you have to get them so they don't bounce. So I'm not a sewer, but I sewed some little tags onto my rucksack. I was so proud of myself to get this set up because I'm literally the worst kit admin person. But yeah, they're great for like for heat regulation. You don't want to be taking layers on and off, but you want to be putting buffs on, hats on, gloves on. All of that kind of extra layering that can regulate your heat with the same jacket.
Mm.
So it's really good for stuff like that. I had my phone in it so I could access it, and then everything that paracetamol, food, and bits and bobs. Yeah, so I really like them. I did see John Kelly on before the race. He put out how he'd got his pack down to 3.3 kilos. So I was like, that's not fair. That's just cheating. Because I thought I'd done
Oh,
quite well with mine, but mine was well over
oh.
a kilo
I
heavier.
mean, I find that mind-boggling. I really do.
Yeah, I don't know how he did it, but
I
yeah.
mean,
Anyway,
oh. Oh, well, I've just actually received a review from one of the spiners who's written about the Geeky Hiker pack actually, so I'll be quite interested to read about that.
yeah, lots of people mention that, and I think that's really good, particularly if you're hiking, if you're not running as much. I think if you're running, you do need to find a way to make it not bounce. You probably don't want something too heavy, but you just need to
Yeah.
experiment. It's different
I
for everyone.
got a I got an OMM one, but it's tethered on four corners, so
Yeah, that's what mine is. But you just
yeah.
need to find a way that it like tethered tight enough.
Mm.
Mm.
It seems like quite a good idea as well for balance as well to just have something like in front of you as well as this great big pack that you have to take
Yeah,
with you. like just maybe just a mindset thing. Do you listen to music or anything whilst you're out on the run?
If I'm training, yeah, always like podcasts. I listen to so many podcasts, and music. I actually did a bit more in the spine this year. So I think Hannah and Eddie Sutton listen to musicals, and I randomly put on a musical playlist, which I would never normally listen to. But I found that really good. And yeah, I just had some random, playlists that I was playing. So I did listen to music much more than I did last year. And I think I was chatting before the race. Last year I barely listened to anything. I think that's because I was so out of it. My brain just couldn't cope with anything. So I kind of wondered this year if I can eat a bit better and sleep a bit better, maybe I will need a bit more distraction because mentally I'll be a bit more alert. And yeah, I found the music really helpful. I think I listened to one podcast maybe, but I can't remember which it was. But yeah, generally just music.
Yeah, I often listen to podcasts when I'm running, but sometimes when I'm listening to someone's sort of torrid journey of a long ultra marathon and they're describing in detail about how difficult it was, I find I start like breathing heavier. Like it's the best thing to listen to right now.
I tell you what's
Have some
really
music.
good, what I got into, particularly when my Saskia was bad, was real survival stories. So it's a great podcast about people who have these horrendous accidents and somehow survive them. And I found at the end of a big day when I was really suffering, I would put on one of these episodes and they're about 45 minutes. You're like, yeah, I'm not in that big a hole, am I? I've still got my limbs and
Perspective.
yeah.
Yeah.
I used to get the same thing from watching Peep Show and just thinking, oh, maybe my life's not so bad. Always so doom and gloom.
Are you writing a book?
I think if I had £1 for every time everyone laughs me, I'd probably have quite a lot of money. I don't know. I don't know plans now, but maybe one day. I'd like to write a book about some of the things I see at work, like some of the reasons I love oncology and some of the amazing stories that I see with people dealing with adversity. So if I was to ever write a book, I think I'd want to link some of those stories in and show how they've impacted me because I learn so much from people I work with at work, who are going through stuff you can't even imagine. And I'd love to weave some of that in. But yeah, I don't know, maybe one day. There's some interesting things I've learned, but I would think who would actually read it.
A lot of people, Lucy. A lot of people.
Is what you do at work? I mean, perhaps obviously, is that why you started your charity, your 5K and move against cancer?
Yeah, so the reason that the idea for 5K Your Way came from it was when I was a registrar, so it's a level below consultant. And I'd just gone onto the ward to do a prescription for a young person. He was maybe 22, something like that. And he'd had a really rare brain tumor and he'd theoretically been cured of the brain tumor. And I'd only gone to the ward to give him a prescription for something. He'd finished his treatment and we started chatting. And although he'd been theoretically cured, in the process, he'd put on several stone in weight. He'd lost his friends, he'd lost his job, and he was spending all day asleep and all night awake playing computer games. And I just remember walking off the ward and thinking, like what? And I'd only been back from triathlon maybe a year. I just remember thinking, what are we doing? Like we're curing people, but that's the life that they're left with. So I
Mm.
love Part Run, and I just had this idea. Well, maybe we could get a group of young people to build up to doing a Part Run every 3 months, and that would be like they get that camaraderie, that sense of achievement of doing something together. And everyone spoke to people in the hospital, and they were like, oh, see, just because you like running doesn't mean that everyone else will. So then I'd heard about this amazing lady called Gemma, who was a local runner from Loughborough, and she'd had cancer when she was 25. And when she was going through her cancer treatment, she was really struck by the fact there was no support to help her keep running. And she eventually, with the support for a hematologist, she'd run a half marathon with like a blood transfusion before. And I would not necessarily not endorsing this, but after her cancer treatment, she'd founded Move Charity the year before with the goal of providing other young people with the support that she didn't get. So Move at that point was just Gemma, who was doing some walks with young people in kind of in the local park. And I had this idea, and I was like, do you know what? No one in the hospital's supporting it. I wonder if Gemma will be up for it. So messaged Gemma, we end up having coffee and just realized we both shared this vision that exercise could be hugely powerful with people with cancer. So we decided just to give it a go in Nottingham, and that's how 5K Your Way was born. And then social media kind of just it snowballed it. And it's so cool that just by having a little platform from triathlon, you can then have an idea like 5K Your Way and talk about it, and it can snowball so quickly because it's not even like I had a big platform. It's just a little platform, but it was enough to do something with. And in the early days, it was a lot of people who'd been engaged with triathlon that kind of messaged. I'm like, how can we get involved? So we've now got 100 and I think 105 5K away groups across the UK and Ireland.
Wow.
It's really simple. We meet at park runs on the last Saturday of every month. So welcome to anybody who's impacted by cancer in any way. We've got volunteer ambassadors, all of whom are affected by cancer, and we just walk or jog or run or cheer or volunteer and then have a coffee and a catch up afterwards. So it's such a simple initiative, but it's so powerful and it really does change lives. Um,
Lovely.
and then we've since then, so it was Move and 5K Your Way, we've amalgamated it into Move Against Cancer. And we've got the other kind of big arm of work for Move Against Cancer is an online cancer rehab program for young people who finish their cancer treatment. So people aged 13 to 30, and they finish their cancer treatment or they've got a gap in treatment, hospital appointments stop, and their bodies have changed, their psychology has changed. And this is just really simple. They get 8 sessions with a specialist cancer rehab instructor, and it's about helping them build back confidence in their body to be active again. And then the third arm is spreading awareness about the benefits of exercise and supporting and inspiring people to be active. Because there is the overwhelming evidence is that everyone with cancer should be active. And it's one of the very biggest things that anyone with a cancer diagnosis can do to make themselves feel better, but also probably to improve their outcomes. And it's a real cliche, but if you had a pill that did everything that exercise did, you'd give it to every single person with cancer. Yet healthcare professionals just don't talk about it because they assume the natural assumption is, well, someone with a cancer diagnosis isn't going to want to be told to exercise. I would counteract that and say, well, actually, I think most people with cancer diagnosis want to know what they can do to make themselves feel better and improve their outcomes. And exercise is one of the very few things that they can do. So yeah, we're a really small charity, but we make a big difference. And it's just such a pleasure to be able to use, my crazy running as a platform to talk about something that I care about so passionately. And that's why, the media attention that's come from this, it's not necessarily about me, actually. A lot of it is about, me and the charity. And, what a privilege to be able to use a run to talk
Mhm.
about a charity that I co-founded. So yeah, we are a small charity, but we make a big difference.
Well, thank you. I think that's brilliant. Thank you so much for talking to us. Uh, Congratulations. And yeah, I don't know. I think we'll all be watching with anticipation to see what you put your mind to next, because whatever it is, it's going to be exciting.
I
Yeah, thank you
literally
so
have
much,
no
Lucy.
idea.
Yeah,
Oh,
it
thank you
Thank
so
doesn't
much,
matter.
Lucy.
Oh, thank you for chatting with me.